turns, because I think it's a deck that's very easy to slip up just a little bit, and often those slip-ups actually lose you games a lot of the times. It doesn't feel very forgiving to me.
I do think that's true, and I think it's the easiest deck to just make straight-up mechanical mistakes that throw games with. I think that's absolutely true. But I think, that's still only step one. Like, you have to, before you can get to any of the, like, big strategical implications of the deck, you have to already be at that point where you're not just throwing on mechanical errors every single game, right? Like, once you get past that point, you can actually start to learn matchups more intricately and learn more advanced mulligans and, pay attention to all of this extra stuff. But it's weird, like, to have a deck that actually just kind of has this, like, execution skill cap, I guess, in Hearthstone is a little bit strange. Certainly not something that we're too used to.
Yeah, and looking at this opening hand here for Swidz, it's not bad as an opening hand, but are they the cards you actually want versus this type of mage? Are Spirit Jailers going to make an impact? Is there any value in actually throwing them away and going for something a little bit more aggressive? I don't know, honestly. I've not got tons of experience in this particular matchup because it's just not a deck you run into that often. But it just interests me that it's like a double keep on Spirit Jailer when they're 1/3s against a deck that actually curves out sometimes a lot more aggressively than you do, minion-wise.
Insta Solarian thrown down here for Boar. There is a niche little interaction that you do need to learn when you're playing Turtle Mage with Solarian, where because the card shuffles your deck, you can actually use it to beat your clock. Do you know when you play Polkelt, you're on a clock until you end up drawing your potions? The turn before you draw your second potion or your first potion or whatever, you can just kill your own Solarian, and then that shuffles your deck, right? Because you're shuffling a card into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing to look at, perhaps if you have Solarian and Polkelt both in your opening hand, for example, in certain matchups. But in this case, much, much more simple from BoarControl. It was a 3-2. It contested the 1-3. It seemed good on that turn.
Yeah, and if you, although it's one very important to know and be aware of, I don't think it's like a plan you're going for right at this point in the game. Like you said, with no Polkelt within any sight, I think it's pretty good here from BoarControl. It's gonna go wide now with these one makers as well. Not really getting any high impact spells. No Ray of Frost that can help out a little bit, but still not too bad. It's just additional removal tools.
These Frozen Shadow Weavers can end up being super clutch here as well. It's something that I didn't really throw into the equation when I was talking about just healing out of range of the Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter can't really deal damage if their face can't swing. So Frozen Shadow Weavers, if you're able to throw them into your Tortolan combo every single turn, that's just as effective as being able to heal, if not potentially more so.
Honestly, the more you talk about this matchup, the more I think it's actually very, very difficult for the Demon Hunter, because there's multiple ways the mage can go based on just what they've drawn at that point that they start going off with turtles, that they can be very awkward, right? Whether it's the Kartuk Defenders, the Farseers, the freezing of the face with the Frozen Shadow Weavers, the general stuff of just killing them with War Mages, for example. They can freeze your board as well. I feel like almost any outcome is actually very powerful for the mage in this specific matchup.
So you can say that, and that is true, but you're considering all the iterations of the matchup where it actually gets to resolve to the point where Boar actually gets to start to do his combo.
Right.
You have to get there first, and I think that's where the window for the Demon Hunter really exists, and why I think it is a fine matchup for the Demon Hunter generally, is that there's a lot of draws. There's a lot of draws that the Demon Hunter can have that just straight up blow out the mage before they're really able to start operating, right? Unless they lock out the board very, very early. So I think the matchup is fine from the Demon Hunter side. I think we are looking at a pretty good draw so far from BoarControl on his side.
No Blade Dance or Shard Chatter here for Swidz is actually a bit of a problem. He's getting just beaten up on his side right now.
It certainly is. Now, Boar can plan. As soon as you have that Tortolan in your hand, you can start working backwards.
Right.
With Farseer and Shadow Weaver still currently in hand, Boar has to make the decision now as to whether he wants to preserve one of those for his eventual combo, whether he wants to preserve both of them for his eventual combo, or whether he just wants to play maximum tempo right now and just try and kill his opponent with the amount of pressure that he has on board, which is a realistic possibility as well.
Yeah, on the surface, I just want to believe that Freeze is more valuable for locking out Demon Hunter than Heal is. Because without those weapon swings, then there's just nothing you can really do. So I think at minimum, Farseer ping this turn seems fine. I don't think he should play both, because then his board becomes very susceptible to a shard chatter, right? Like the whole thing just gets wiped away.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Okay.
I did wonder. Boar is one of the most tempo-focused players that I know, and I'm pretty sure. Like, I saw him playing a heroic brawl with this deck. I think he got a 12-win heroic brawl with this deck. Wasn't able to watch most of it, but I don't really consider him a Turtle Mage player, so I was interested in like checking out the mod of it before I came to cast this series, but didn't really have the opportunity. And I did wonder whether he just played like full tempo the entire time and just beat his opponents up.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of risk to that, and we saw one of the outcomes that was a bit punishing.
No! Disaster Raven! Waxadread puts a 4th spell in his deck!
It's fine, he just needs to draw a Frost Nova, right?
Oh no. I mean, it does create a weird win condition where you can just spam Waxadreads if you're actually able to duplicate a few turtles. Like, so to just explain in detail, obviously this deck is engineered around the fact that you only have 3 spells total. So every Tortolan that you offer offers you the same 3 spells. One of them is Potion. So whenever you want, you can always duplicate Tortolans. If you have a bunch of Tortolans in your hand, you can do whatever you want with them. Whenever a 4th spell gets added to your deck via Waxadread's Candle, via Bomb, via a Soul Fragment, whatever other weird way it ends up happening, you can just whiff on the potion on the first time you play a Tortolan. And then your deck doesn't really work anymore, and you have a pretty significant problem.
Right. So would you say it's extremely vital for Swidz to trade into this Waxadread this turn? You think that's a 100% thing?
Yes.
Probably doesn't want to consume magic either.
Impatient.
No.
I think what's very interesting to me, and I know we hold GMs to a very high standard, of course, and so we should, but how aware do you think Swidz is of the impact of this minion? Because what if Swidz just has never really played Turtle Mage? What if he's never really watched much? You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It's not the most obvious thing if you don't play the deck.
It's a very good point indeed.
And he'd be giving up 5 damage.
Mm.
Which I'll tell you as a Demon Hunter player, all that damage wants to go face.
And actually, like, Tortolan considerations aside, he doesn't necessarily have to immediately kill it this turn. Because it's only turn 8 for Boar, so he can only play one turtle. Yeah. So if Swidz just ships all the damage face, Boar couldn't play the turtle this turn anyway, right? Because there's just too much damage being represented on the board for Boar to be able to go turtle into potion. He'd have to go turtle into freeze instead.
Oh, also, that was a bit of a double whammy as well, right? Because the egg means that if he starts duping eggs, it just fills up his hand. So at some point, he has to, like, ping the egg just for it to go away. Like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to laugh, but it is pretty funny that the 2 cards were Waxadread and Egg exactly.
Well, I suspect that Boar thought about this, knew that the Waxadread is the one that has to be killed, and then put the illusion on the egg so he could end up pinging it himself at some point, just to get it off the board so he doesn't have to duplicate it. Even outside of the fact that you just want the illusion on the egg anyway because it's the small one.
Time runs out on me.
But now Boar needs a window. He needs a window to even try and win the game here with his Tortolans, which he doesn't currently have.
And this is the issue, right? Like, he would have to like Nova this turn and then try and go like Tortollan Potion turn after, or Tortollan Potion freeze, and then that starts to get you in dicey situations because there's a point where that can never actually get going, right? You could always have to be too defensive for it to work if there's no Tortollans that stick on board, so it does get very, very tricky.
He ends up just playing it out here for the Blizzard. He is guaranteed to hit a freeze still there, though, because he's going to see one of the two of Frost Nova and Blizzard every single time.
So at this point, is Swidz just happy just continuing to go face? And also, is the sickest play to actually just silence the egg so it can't be pinged?
Impatient.
That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good.
Because you can't silence your own minions with Consume Magic, so it's not like you want to silence a freeze and get to push more damage. It doesn't work. You can't do it. So what? Like, you must know that that's pingable, right? As Swidz, so I'm just saying. Gets into his skull a bit quicker as well.
That play is just cute enough that even if it's not right, it sounds so big brain, you could definitely convince everyone that it's right, even if it's wrong.
Well, now down to 6. Got the Waxer candle off the top, actually.
Which would have given him a guaranteed turtle this turn, but he already played it on the previous turn for the freeze. There was the option to just use Frost Nova on the previous turn, as we were talking about, but Boar just committed the 5/5 instead.
Why was that? Because to me, he just now has to sit and wait for another Tortollan. Whereas if he'd done it the other way, he could have potentially had a safer option.
Why? Well, hang on. Why are you calling it a safer option?
Well, okay. So if he'd waited a bit longer, maybe not even necessarily the turn after, but if he held on, he would have had more mana to play more mini Tortollans. Maybe even if that's actually, say, turn 10, where he can play 2.
But that's the problem, right? Is because he's now essentially in the Bomb Warrior matchup where his Tortollans aren't guaranteed, right? Because he has the Waxer Dread. So whichever one he ends up playing, it could still just whiff and not hit the potion, and then his whole plan fails. So I think Boar's thinking there is just to get a 5/5 on board and just do it for the consistent thing that he needs it to do, which is freeze the board. Like I said, that always happens because he always hits the Frost Nova or the Blizzard, right? There's no failure rate. So now he can just try and push from here.
It definitely doesn't look obvious, right? It looks weird at a surface level to see one Tortollan, no dupe. Now there's no Tortollan in hand, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It looks weird if you know the base way they get the deck plays, right? Look, Swidz. Skull's a good card, especially when outcast. There's only one target for this Consume Magic. Oh! No! Swidz. I'm disappointed. But that's... Wait, is it... Is it just...
Warlock.
Wait, what?
Hello?
There's no secret, right? Am I being stupid, Sol?
I don't believe there's a secret in play, no.
Marrow Slicer Chaos Strike? He's on 6 health? I've got nothing!
Carry on!
I've got nothing left! Oh, I don't know.
I hope you're happy, Swidz. You've made Raven go fully in Beal.
That wasn't even hard! Oh, okay.
Oh, the
BoarControl for justice.
The punish!
For justice.
The punish!
You need to win this game of Hearthstone. So he doesn't even realised. He isn't raging on camera. So he's not realised. You're allowed to over-equip a weapon. Unless I'm being stupid and missing something, which is fine. I'm used to being laughed at. But that looked very straightforward to me.
You're not.
I have become one with the void.
I'm used to it, but I don't want to be laughed at.
Alright, that's functionally nothing here. He just needs damage or healing. Those are the only two things that are really relevant. and nearly just ended it straight up. Just could have gone
Yep.
face. Mirror image, no mirror image, no frostbolt. It's a valiant effort in the end, but it's not.
Is he gonna see the lethal though? Okay, woo! He got there. Wow, that was a weird ending to that game, and we've cast some weird games today. So normally I like to try and dig players out of situations like this, but I can't. I've got nothing.
Yeah, it was a pretty weird scenario to say the least. Even though, starting with the consume magic on the Waxadread, right? Like, it's super questionable in that scenario. Obviously, he wanted to cycle it because it was outcast, but did he actually need to consume magic the Waxadread? Is that good or bad for him? Who knows? But obviously, the bigger focal point is what happened after that point, where he spent 6 mana on Skull, as opposed to various other things that
Such as
potentially
winning
could
the
have been,
game.
yeah, more powerful on that turn. And Boar did top the Prime, which gave him hope, but like I said, he needed straight up damage to end the game, or he needed Ice Barrier, Deep Freeze, Frostbolt the face, Mirror Image. He just needed very, very specific things that either gave him lethal outs or defensive outs. He found neither. He found nice board clears, but nice board clears just weren't really relevant in that position whatsoever.
Yeah, just enough for Swidz to get over the line there in a bit of a dicey game, number one. We are going to go to a break because I think we all need it after that. We'll be right back to continue Grandmasters.
Hearthstone ができなくなるのがちょっと怖い。
应该是7只手指吧，因为这样就可以做比较多的事情。然后有7个脚趾也不一定会走得比较快。
평소에 손이나 발 사용할 때도 손이 더 활용도가 더 많이 높은 것 같아서 네, 손을 선택했어요.
손가락을 많이 필요로 해본 적이 없어서 저는 오히려 그게 더 편하지 않을까 생각합니다.
아무래도 게임 좀 많이 하다 보니까 좀 더 유리할 거 아니에요? 게임하는데? 그래서 손가락 7개인 게 더 나을 것 같습니다.
どちらでもなくて腕を2本増やしたいです。
Okay, so there's. Oh, wait, how bad is this zombie apocalypse? We're gonna survive, or?
Tough one.
Oh my god.
For a zombie apocalypse, I would take Torbjorn, the Viper. He's pretty strong. I would take Language Hacker. He seems very, very smart. Probably Zilay. Seems like he could, deal with a lot of the threats.
So if there is a zombie apocalypse, I think I would choose. I will definitely not choose Zim or Swidz. I don't trust them. I think I will go with BoarControl, Casey, and Galon. That's the guy I go along with. So
my crew would be Born, Viper, and Bunny.
Bunny is a scientist, so he might find a cure or something like that. Casey can just handle all the zombies with his incredible strength. Tice can be the bait, and I'll just wait around and help somehow.
Welcome back. We are ready to get into our next game in this pretty wacky series already. Swidz versus BoarControl is going to continue right now into our game number 2. Swidz getting a win there, even though he tried not to, which means he's going to be 1-0 up so far. He's going to be on the Warrior versus BoarControl's Druid now going into game 2.
Yeah, and this is where things potentially get even more interesting because we put a lot of testing into this Warrior build. More so in Zim's other matchup for the week where he's playing against Wama, who has, I would say, an improved version of the Chonsu anti-Warrior strategy. But this is a very unique build of Warrior that both Swidz and Zim are bringing this week with limited bombs, just the Wrench Calibers on their own to represent the bombs, no upgrades, no Krastanov, no Horde Pillagers, but instead there's a Zephyrus that makes the list, and they use those extra spots to make room for kind of the best of both worlds of the other 2 builds, where you have the Risky Skipper package, but you also have one Evil Quartermaster and room for double Coerce, for example, which doesn't always make the list in the Risky Skipper version of the deck.
And this version of BoarControl's Druid as well does interest me. It's not one I've dove into too much myself, but it feels like just jamming the ultimate power into one deck. 2 Survival of the Fittest, the King Fioris, the Ysera, Kael'thas, Forest Warden Omu's in there, as well as the animals and guardian animals that go with it, of course. So it just feels like insane top level power crammed into the Druid list, but with a few chances of some pretty big whiffs, because you do just have to assume without getting to a relatively early Survival of the Fittest, this deck looks like it could struggle.
Yeah, I'll have to see how it goes, because like I said, some of these matchups are a little bit up in the air. I did mention Boar. I talked to Boar about this specifically, and he said that he was not really respecting this Warrior list, and he was going to leave it up and just have that as his hill to die on, that he wasn't really respecting this Bomb Warrior list enough to be hitting it with a ban. So, have to see how it plans out.
Here though, already for BoarControl at the top here for the mulligan. Nothing too crazy to hold on to for me, and honestly the same could be said from Swidz here. I'm not sure if any of these cards are anything the players are too interested in. Swidz actually keeping the Blade Storm, which does surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, it's not that unusual in the matchup. Generally, conventional wisdom says that you want a decent mix of aggression with the Wrench Caliber and some removal to fall back on in hand. So you'll quite often see like Corsair Cash plus Coerce kept, or Corsair Cash plus Lord Barov, or Corsair Cash plus Brawl, for example. So keeping on to like one decent removal seems reasonable. And I think the mulligans even probably change in Swidz's version of the deck, because he doesn't really have all-in bombs to face as a win condition, right? Because he only has those 2 natural Wrench Calibers.
Yeah, and looking now, BoarControl's hand has got significantly better in the post-mulligan world. He has a few too many beasts in hand, I think, but he can at least make them work in some respect with the help of this wild growth. And weirdly enough, it might be a bit too early for now, but having at least one Survival of the Fittest in his hand, I think, is pretty important. Swidz going with the big turn here.
The biggest. Wow, ton of mana available for Boar now. We might be seeing an incredibly early Survival of the Fittest here.
Yeah.
He's going to get met with the Blade Storm. That's another one of the big reasons why hanging onto it is absolutely not unreasonable there. 5-drop Beast coming down on curve, or just being bloomed or innovated out early, is a pretty common iteration of the matchup. They don't always go straight to Guardian Animals. Sometimes they do just have to play their beasts.
And do you agree with this play as well, with the Overgrowth draw instead of the hard acceleration, to either beast down or potentially even looking at the survival? Just going to go for it a little bit slower than planned, I think.
Yeah, I do like it. There's a question now as to whether you just want a really, really early survival next turn, or whether this hand needs card draw, and you try and like stick the second Twilight Runner now because it's quite likely to stick right after you just saw the initial Blade Storm get used to deal with the first one. You just bloom it out that turn. But Boar's going to hold back. So this could be survival. It could also just be double beast this turn, and then try and land the survival on whatever survives. What is this hand?
It's tough, isn't it? Because without a broom, if this Twilight Runner does go down, then Boar is just stranded, pretty much, in his hand, right? It's just so you can play survival, and hope he draws card draw within those 2 turns, which again I think is reasonable, but it is tough. I think Boar really does need to get some card draw going very quickly indeed.
This will break your on wings of evil.
Whoa, insta Deathwing. It's got a pair of Deathwing bookends now.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the board is too big in this build, right? Double survival. Sometimes you just can't clear that. So I do actually like the Deathwing there from Swidz, even though I imagine we're not going to see it played for a very long time yet. Still no broom. Oh. Well. This is going to get shut down.
It is indeed. Or really focused on trying to find card draw there because he was offered the Guardian Animals off that Nature Studies that he could have just ripped straight up for a Lake Thresher and a Teacher's Pet.
Does he
really feels like he wants to get some of this card draw going?
Yeah. I actually really like this. Initially, I was looking at Barov, but Barov always gets the job done, whereas Deathwing does not. So I actually do like that play there from Swidz.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bloom.
Why is this draw? Boar's just like got giant minions, but isn't able to play any of them. Like, what is happening right now?
What's really funny is, I bet Swidz at this point wishes he was playing Turbo Bomb Warrior, because Boar would be dead.
He
right
would.
now.
He would.
He'd just be dead. Whereas because he's playing Control, but there's not been really that many minions to even try and kill, his hand's very full of removal that he can't use.
Right.
Should probably just equip the Wrench Caliber, I imagine, this turn. Just to use up some mana, free up some hand space.
Seems fine, yeah, but someone has to lead the charge. So might as well get that Sky Raider in there first, just in case the play would change. Seems incredibly unlikely too, though.
Fungal Fortune.
Yeah, pretty sure you don't want to be pretty sure you don't want to be discarding your 2020s this game.
Yeah. Did get the overflow though, which is a huge deal. But now it's the weird point of, well, how does he get a board to actually stick and hit face? What does KT even do now? It's just a big dude, isn't it? Like at this point, he's KT, and even potentially to some extent the Omu he plays are just big minions right now.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if big is the right description at this point. Like, Boar's minions have achieved ludicrous size at this point, right? So each individual minion that he plays represents basically a full board of threat, right? So he can actually just space out his minions one by one at this point. You see here kind of another reason why Boar may have turned down that Guardian Animals off the Nature Studies a couple of turns ago, because he still has double Guardian Animals in his deck. If you were to take that Guardian Animals and then pull his last 2 remaining beasts out of his deck, he then has 2 completely dead copies of Guardian Animals in his deck after that point. Whereas now, having drawn a Guardian Animals, he actually at least gets to use one of them for a Teacher's Pet and a Nubasath Defender.
He might not want to, right? Isn't it not just a Feoris fodder?
That's true. That is a good point. But not having the Feoris just yet.
Animals number 3. Now he's got too much card draw.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the Guardian Animals, honestly.
Yeah, I do too. And I, like, for exactly the reasons I was talking about, I love not committing the Ghidra here, right? Like, there's just no need to. Like, this is a game-ending board. It has to be dealt with.
Good positioning though from Swidz. It's not going to make a huge impact, but
why wouldn't you attack the Armor Smith?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there something in the water today? Oh,
Yeah.
Swidz. That's rich, Swidz. Rewind back.
Yeah,
to game
there you
one.
go. Okay, Boar processing. I'm not like there's something glass houses throwing stones. I'm sure there's a saying for this, but
I think it's more throwing games, not stones.
yeah, exactly. But Boar at least eventually recognized the mistake there that turn. You can see it on
Oh.
his face.
It's just one of those days, isn't it?
It is.
It's start to get a little bit tricky now because this becomes a game of how slowly Boar can play his threats out versus, you know, him having the overwhelming damage in one single turn, right?
Right.
I do think this Deathwing could be pretty clutch, though.
Yeah, I agree. Swidz took it there before I even had the chance to make the mistake of like, oh, okay, Evasive Worm versus Twin Tyrant, two pretty interesting options. And then Swidz just snap picked the Deathwing, which is obviously the right decision here because you can see now Swidz, the player who has experience with the deck, recognizes what the matchup is about, and he understands that at some point he's going to run out of removal here. So Deathwing is absolutely what he needs. Ghidra Guardian Animals. Guardian Animals summons nothing, but it makes a giant Ghidra. Just to play 2 more big minions. Fine.
Might have to be the turn that the Barov comes out to play. This actually feels... It's a little bit extreme, of course, but it feels like playing how old Control Warrior used to, where you were trying to like match up your removal the best way you can to the threats that your opponent has.
Yeah. Do you think Swidz would like to have a card draw turn here sometime soon? Which is probably why he's lining up this Skipper for this turn. So he can get the Battle Rage to come down. Because he's one Shield Block, 1 Brawl away from having this Zephyrus active. So drawing 3 cards here gets him very, very closer to achieving that. There's the Shield Block. Wow, he's going to really greed this.
He's going to Shield Slam one of them?
Looks that way, yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess with 25 armor you can take that. Wait, why wouldn't you Shield Slam the pressure?
So you can swing face, I guess? I don't know.
Okay. I guess he's not too bothered about the damage from his board right now, right? So
yeah.
I guess
like he just wants to swing the weapon that turn, right? And he can't swing it into the minion. He has a second Wrench Caliber in hand that he wants to equip.
And I guess if the Thresher trades into the Armor Smith, is that just sick? Like a 1/2 tank in 12?
Right. Yeah.
I guess it's fine. It's more of my my like natural Hearthstone instincts kicked in for a second there.
That minion is really good.
Still just 1 Brawl away, I believe now. Yeah, from that Zephyrus being active. Brawl the only remaining 2 of in his deck. Still has Galakrond and Blastmaster Boom in there as well, which I think makes continuing to draw cards pretty valuable for Swidz.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm probably joining Swidz here, where I'm trying to think of ways he can kill like one of the big minions and just tank the damage maybe for another turn, you know, without committing this Barov. It's very difficult, isn't it? And this turn, wow, he's
just shipping
it all.
He's just shipping.
How much?
It's all
damage
going
is that?
face.
Like, in some worlds, that's just lethal, right? Like left up, like if he has like Nature Studies into Savage or something.
Both Nature Studies are gone though.
Oh, sorry, I missed one. I thought there was still one left.
Yeah, there's no possible additional damage that can be added to this.
What to do?
It just looks so weird, doesn't it? There's a 30 damage on board.
Yeah, just the small
just
matter
gonna
of
go face.
33 damage. No big deal. I can tank 33.
And there's nothing that BoarControl can really do to make his board more awkward to deal with, right? The one teacher's pet's gone.
Waits for no one.
That's very true.
And without nature studies to give him death rattle effect or anything like that, then yeah, it'll be a tough one. Crystal Power for the heal. But we can see that the Barov is going to clear this at any given point here. He's going to commit the Gidra as well. Probably wants to force the removal out, right?
Be the skipper Barov turn, it looks like now, from Swidz. He's got himself a piece of extra value, but BoarControl is forcing it here this turn. I mean, remember that he has all of those dragons still in his deck at this point as well, which you know is another reason why Swidz is trying to milk this for as long as he can. Because any extra turn he waits where dragons get drawn and added to the board, that's just additional value that he's getting.
I'll show you who's pirates away!
Pirates away, indeed. But he does squeeze himself the extra piece of value from the Gidra, at least.
Yeah, I do like Swidz just getting as many minions on board as possible here, because he is starting to just add up to lethal, right?
Yeah.
Second Broom is going to give Boar some trading capabilities, though, to help out.
I do kind of like it, though. Like, it's very bizarre the way Swidz has played this so far, but you can see on Boar's side, right? Like, I think part of the reason why that Gidra was played is that he just wants hand space, so he's able to cast this second overflow at some point. Because he has so much value left in his deck with all of the remaining dragons, and he has King Phaoris in there for a big final minion as well, and Forest Warden Omu as well, which, you know, anything that is a minion is giant at this point.
Yeah, honestly, like, I was even just looking at what just, like, Bloom, Innovate, Overflow looks like that turn, right? And that's probably going to be the plan in the near future, but that's in, like, the weird position we're in right now.
5 cards remaining in deck for Swidz. 2 of them are Brawl, which is what's keeping this Zephyrus from being active. And then he has Galakron, Blastmaster Boom, Kargath Prime. That is about the highest value deck I can imagine in 5 total cards. Like, it's hard to imagine Boar's threats here lining up in a way that does not get fully removed by everything Swidz has here.
Looks like a Slam Deathwing turn every day of the week here. It just
unless you do Ravens plays, and then you can lose.
Yeah. So Bladestorm Coerce does clear the board, but it gives him like relatively weak Zephyrus follow-up if he wants to play it that turn. Is he just gonna Zephyrus like Twisting Nether this? They should just armor up and Shadow Word Ruin.
Yeah, you'd Shadow Word Ruin.
It's still this, right?
It'll still give it to you. It just knows it's better, right? You don't actually have to force it.
Yeah, well, you think that until it doesn't do it, and then you're worried again. Every time you think you understand Zephyrus, something happens in which leads to which is pretty much every day for me. Omu, again, simply another big minion. I think this might have to be the overflow turn, right?
I'm not even sure he can overflow at this point.
Because he's still scared of Brawl?
Yeah. I think he needs his dragons to come out like 1 or 2 at a time. And I think that's a problem that maybe Swidz has created for himself on the turn that he took the 30 plus damage. Is that he's put himself in a position where if 1 or 2 dragons come out at a time, he does still have to answer them. Whereas if he had 40 plus health, he wouldn't have. And maybe that's backwards thinking because he has 1 whole extra removal now, right? Because he greeded that turn, so maybe that just cancels each other out. I don't know.
Yeah. And to be fair, the dragons generally are just smaller. So, like, in a roundabout way, easier to deal with.
Well, that made everything a lot more simple.
What? I don't understand Hearthstone anymore, so this is a weird day in a weird series, honestly, as well. Swidz goes up to 2-0 so far. We needed to win one game now against BoarControl, and again, weird game, but BoarControl did some very powerful things there, but because it's very one-dimensional, because the problem there is BoarControl didn't do anything that fast, which is normally one thing Druid can do. Or Druid plays Malygos, and it's unstoppable burst damage, so you don't need to wait for minions to stick on board for it to happen. And although against a lot of decks, what BoarControl did that game was very powerful, against exactly this control-ish variant of Warrior that runs enough just flat removal, it just got there. And I think it's just a weird clashing of matchups, honestly.
Yeah, and it's an interesting spot for both players to have been in there, because I think how greedy Swidz was did actually put Boar in a very unfortunate position, because Boar couldn't really afford to keep drawing through his deck much faster at that point because Swidz had spaced out his removal so hard. So Boar knew that he couldn't just deck himself with Overflow, right, and just all in on one giant turn, because there's still a Zephyrus and 2 Brawls left in his opponent's deck. So he knows that he just immediately loses to one of them. So that forced him to play a little bit slower. And just try and draw 1 or 2 dragons at a time, play 1 or 2 threats at a time. But that just lined up really nicely into Swidz's plan of okay, I'll just coerce this minion this turn and then move on. And, I've built up 50, 60 health over the course of the game, so I can tank a lot of this damage if I want to. It was a very interesting game, and certainly that Warrior is very unique in terms of Bomb Warrior builds that we've seen in GM so far. So the people who are bringing it are certainly going to understand the matchups a lot better than anyone looking on from the outside, even though we did our best to try and test it as much as possible yesterday. Obviously, they put in a lot more time with the deck.
Yeah, pretty bit of a different matchup now, this Druid mirror. If BoarControl did what he did in the last game in this one, Druid doesn't really have the capability to respond to minions that are just bigger. By quite the margin. Swidz is running the 1 Survival of the Fittest, the 1 Mount Seller build we saw a bit earlier in the day, with a double Anubis, double Thresher, 1 Pet, 2 Twilight Runner. So much more manageable for BoarControl to deal with, as both players are still running animated broomsticks as well. So it's not like one player doesn't have the ability to rush back on board. So I think it's going to be a much, much closer game. BoarControl, I think, at least just looking at the list, look favored to me.
Yo!
What's
happening here?
I don't know.
Oh,
he wanted runner?
Okay. Yeah. I was really panicking there for a second because I thought Boar had double bloomed Omu and thought something good was going to happen when he coined, and then that was what he was freaking out about. I wasn't sure what was happening.
Can I overgrowth this turn as well?
Yeah.
Ugh. A little bit unfortunate here. The big question is Boar just going to go for the overgrowth anyway? Yes, he is.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely has to. Oh, wow, that crystal power draw is insane. Are those the worst Lake Threshers you've ever seen in your life? I think those might be the worst Lake Threshers I've ever seen in my life.
Coming from a Guardian Animals, 100%.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, just playing one out when it's dying or getting freezing trapped is pretty bad. But from Guardian Animals, yes, completely agree. Heavily. Huh.
You do it right.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I even though I wouldn't be upset at seeing an overflow there, I think this is just the way to go because he's already ahead, right?
Exactly. He's not significantly ahead, but he's very comfortable. He can expect here that he's playing the first Ysera. He's not, but he can expect that he is, and then from that position, he has the time to go Ysera into overflow. The fact that Boar can just go 1 turn faster here is a bit of an issue, but I think from Swid's perspective, absolutely the right play. draws no dragon, though. That's an issue. Currently no card draw, but he does have a Nature Studies to go fishing on the following turn.
Yeah, and he's going to have time, right? Because Swidz is doing a relatively slow turn now himself with the Ysera. Ysera trade pass, and that does mean BoarControl gets at least some action here.
Okay. Okay.
Well, it's like, can I take Forest Aid and Power of the Wild here?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I mean, Forest Aid is pretty sick, right? It fills a board now and leaves an 8-mana spell in his hand.
Gets to play a
King
Nubasath as
Feoris.
well. Oh no,
Plays
well, will it?
boards
Sorry,
full.
yeah, it's too
He'd
many,
have
too
to
many. Yeah.
Trade and then play a Nubasath, and that's probably not worth.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I thought you'd have one space for some weird reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Feoris does look significantly more powerful next turn, if this board is even cleared, which is a pretty big ask,
Right.
actually.
It's the overflow turn. Or can cope with a couple of dragons here, but if it's one of those enormously explosive Dream Portal turns, he might just be in trouble. That's a problem. That's a problem too. Yep, blooms out the Twilight Runner just so he can get maximum card draw next turn as well. And then giant Ironbark Taunt on the Ysera here.
Yeah, huge chunk of stat boost coming here, though, from the Survival of the Fittest from BoarControl, because I imagine he's going to veer away from a Feoris this turn, just to get all the value on these minions.
Yeah, so too. The other option is to trade off all your 2/2s into the 7/7, I guess, and then replace your board with giant minions from the Feoris that turn, including a 10-drop from the Survival you just used. Yeah, completely agree. This looks significantly better.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he still just has that Forest Aid and an Overgrowth for next turn with Feoris, I think that's enough, because his Feoris is also buffed, so it's not like a 10-mana 5/5 anymore, right? It's a little bit more reasonably statted once you drop that Survival of the Fittest on.
Hard agree. Important turn to get the sequencing right. Got to know what your turn looks like on average before you commit to either overflow or attacking first. I guess all Guardian Animals first is very reasonable as well. Yep.
Yeah, I think I
Going
was
for
looking at
option
Guardian
C.
Animals. Yeah. And here we go.
You think this is your time?
Dragons versus trees. The age-old conflict.
Yo. Those are large. Bloom Gidra, but nothing to activate it with. Cleave is insane here, though.
It's worth Nature Studies, right? He gets Ironbark, he can just play it on the 4/6 so it lives.
Would you do that, or would you just like jam it on the 12/12 at this point? I don't know.
It's a good question. I don't really know either. Oh, Broom though. No Innovate. Because I imagine Feoris Innovate Broom is a pretty sick combo.
So it's a 9/9, an 8-drop, a 4-drop, and a 1-drop this turn.
Probably just has to, right?
You push 14, so you need your opponent not to be able to heal significantly and leave you up 6+ damage on the board while they have an 8/8 and a 12/12.
What if you value trade the Ysera into the 8/8 and go face with a 6/6 and then and play Feoris?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? Is that there's 20 on the board and you're at 26 and they play the card Survival of the Fittest, so you can't even really justifiably just smash face in this position either.
I think step one is see what he come out, though, because he might get rushed. Oh, my.
Okay. Everyone take
value trade
take
now?
Feoris out of your decks immediately. This is garbage. What's happening?
Should he trade into the Deathwing? Card draws for the dragon.
There's no way, right? There's no way. Overflow again?
Gidra overflow? Does that ever make a difference? And then you can still broom.
It's true. 4 portals left in 10 cards. So you're going to draw almost all of them, almost all the time. I think you just draw the dragons. I think you just draw dragons and broom, right? I don't think you need the Gidra.
But why wouldn't you want? What else are you doing with the
Board
mana?
space.
Wait, how many portals are left?
There's 4 left, so you do still have room for the Gidra and the broom.
I guess this lets him heal, but you don't need to heal if you kill more minions, right? Like, aren't the minions being on board more of a threat than help? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, only
quick,
6
though.
cards in his deck are real here, so he's going to get a lot of dragons a lot of the time.
He's got to hurry up because these take ages to summon.
Yep.
He's already played the broom.
Yeah, it is smart. He can insta-play the broom and just queue that up, attack up into the 8-1. Just make sure that gets done.
Ooh. Does he get the Anubis down though? Probably not, right?
Just got to wait and see at this point how many of these animations he was able to deal with. Swidz has made a mess of one game already. I hope for his sake he hasn't made another.
Oh!
Close
Okay, got the
enough.
Anubis out.
Close enough. Arguments to holding on to the Ironbark here anyway, since you have the Mount Seller in hand now.
Yeah, definitely tough because you see the draw before you see the dragons, right? So you don't know what can even be traded. But the problem now for BoarControl is he does have the portals in the deck, but with 19 cards, obviously a chunk of them are portals, like he's much less likely to be drawing into them. So does he have enough to actually stave off this and still have enough minions to finish up the game? Now Swidz has the Mount Seller.
He does. Last card is a portal for Swidz as well. So he knows he gets one more dragon next turn, as I don't think he's drawing it this turn.
Him not having this Survivor of the Fittest active is it's the world of difference, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
It is so huge.
Ah!
It's going to help with fatigue.
It's actually kind of good here.
Even Sol has to admit at this point the card isn't horrible.
Still horrible.
Probably going to use this to push 10, right? For the Ysera and the big old well. I like this. Means he has Gidra next turn, or just a flat Survival of the Fittest, depending on what the board state looks like, of course.
Overgrowth, excess mana, all going in the memory bank for this educated Elec, but that is a huge whiff for Boar off the top. That innovate that he perhaps needed with his Feoris turn. It's not looking like he's going to get there from this point.
It's not. It's still alive, right? He trades away the 6/8. There's not tons of damage on board. Obviously, that's going to increase very quickly. Oh, I guess he knows he gets Survival of the Fittest, right? Because it's last card.
Yep.
So he knows he has it in hand. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the problem. Because I was wondering if like the Twilight Runner is enough to bridge the gap, but obviously Survival of the Fittest is just not going to be, is it?
And even then, like, say Survival of the... Well, no, he knows the last card is a Dream Portal. He actually knows it's in hand. I was going to say...
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, even if you pretend the last card was the Survival of the Fittest, and you then try and, like, kill the Elec so he doesn't draw Survival of the Fittest, you can't even do that. It's not possible.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Just bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm out of cards.
But even now, Boar puts himself at 26. The Survival is going to land, and the Rush minion comes out to play here as well, just to be able to fully clean up. 24, I believe, now connecting phase, leaving Boar 2 health to play with. But whether he played around the immediate lethal or not, the solution was going to be the same. Swidz was going to play survival of the fittest, and he was going to jam face. And I think Boar is just dead either way. We'll see if the Dream Portals can make me look an idiot.
Wow. What a weird series to end the day on. Swidz takes it 3-0 over BoarControl, and things are looking progressively more grim from the UK player in Grandmasters there. But Swidz, again, there were questions about plays, and obviously there was the miss lethal as well. But he did take the series overall 3-0, and that's going to help cement his position in that Division B.
It is, yeah, very, very big deal. And, from Boar's side, there wasn't anything quite as catastrophic as what you were just talking about, but still some little technical errors as well creeping into Boar's play. But I think overall, perhaps just a lineup consideration. I don't know, Boar a little bit off the wall this week with Turtle Mage, slightly unusual build of Druid as well. Whereas Swidz